today I've chosen this subject, World Menopause Day. I've just arrived from delivering a lecture on the subject to an organization which is looking into up-leveling their culture of inclusion and with empathy for their employees who go through menopause associated uncomfortable stage, which I will explain why I phrase it this way. And so I'm just coming from that with the buzz. The theme is very present in my head. I have a few moments, 3 minutes available to connect with you here, and that's why I'm here. And making use of the technology that we have access. I always refer this to you because if there is something I would love to get better at, would be to make sure that the technology works to serve me and the people I work with. And sometimes I failed, as you may know from past videos. Anyway, before I go into this, I share with you what has been very present with me these last weeks. And it's a question, an internal inquiry of how relevant is my work and how can I claim attention to the things that I work on when the international circumstances are very likely calling our attention and our sense of feeling empathy, sympathy even, to very important events that are taking place at the moment. And I am bringing that with me, that inquiry. How is important the time that I dedicate to think about menopause when I've just received the news that so many children have died in the last week. And my heart goes to all of those families, and not just in a certain area of the world, but actually around the world where war is happening at the moment, and how those mothers are feeling and how those women and men are feeling by losing their dear ones. So I just wanted to make explicit and to be in full transparency that whilst I'm here and my sole goal to be on social media is to use this platform so that more people can come across my work and possibly find that this is something that could help them. I do not engage here in many matters beyond my work sphere because I choose other places to do so for my own goodness and for the goodness of those I share those reflections. And yet I am here in full transparency, maybe trying to make it at least available to you to see that I'm also carrying that. And yet, when I reflect on the importance of a matter like menopause, and I analyze how important it is to bring it to the women I work with and to the men I work with outside of this group, then I actually think, I believe that all of these matters are connected. And it's going to be sometimes very indirect. Those connections are indirect. And yet my work has shown me that all of these matters are connected. So in the next few moments, I want to share with you some of the important aspects that I think matter in menopause, a summary, and what we can do about it. Why is it important for the world for us to start increasing awareness around menopause? And also to see if there is a space where you can share your opinions and your questions, your reflections, your perspective. Because my perspective is coming from a place of a natural health practitioner, particularly a women's health expert. I come from a perspective of someone who works in leadership and works in the conditions that needs to be put in place in order for a woman to be able to express herself and those around her to be able to also be expressful when she is going through this stage of her life. And then finally, the skills that I bring as an authentic relative facilitator and how valuable I believe communication is in the establishing of the conditions where people feel that they can be more seen, they can be more at service, and they can be more connected, including through the eyes of people who go through menopause. What I hear, and one of the reasons that incite me to be more verbal about this is because menopause is brought by my clients regardless of their age. Some of us are going through the transition time of menopause. Some others are already having an idea that they one day will. And there's so much we could all, but I believe, learn from each other, from the questions brought by the younger generation, from those who have had experience around the transition time of perimenopause, and above all, to expand the access to resources where everybody can find a way to be supported through this. Because it seems to me that we are all swimming in this sea of information and in this sea of assumptions and beliefs around menopause without really knowing where to swim, where to hold ourselves, where we feel safe in this area. And I have information that I share with my clients, which apparently seems to help them. And yet I know that most of the stuff that I speak about, it's not so easily accessible. Just to give you an idea, in the last years, I find myself not being able to find alternative information about menopause online as I used to find 10 years ago. It's crazy, considering that there's more out there. There's more people working in this field. There's more people raising their voices with questions and needs for support. And yet, when we Google it, there seems to be a retrograde in the access to all that is possible to know these days around menopause. And this applies to many issues regarding women's health. So maybe that's another reason why I find that me and people who hold some relative access to a different kind of interpretation of what menopause is, for us to step forward and start sharing a little bit more of what we do. I wish you to take this information subjectively, which means this is coming from my experience. This is coming from quite high standard, demanding factors that I put in place when I take information, when I reflect, and above all, it's coming from also what I see happening and what works for those I have the opportunity to work with. And yet I wish for you to be always in the sovereignty of the information that you take for your own benefit. And so take your opportunity to ask questions, to question what I'm bringing, and to question all kinds of information and data that you get, so that hopefully in that absorption of different perspectives, you also make your own choices, which is called an informed choice, and you raise more questions and you bring those questions to me. And so we have a nurturing relationship so that we can all learn. That's my wish anyway. So to begin with, let me tell you that what we normally say going through menopause is actually, in my perspective, not accurate. Menopause consists of 3 phases. And perimenopause is the time that takes our body, our female body, to adjust to the fact that we no longer are putting so much energy in the release of eggs. So we have a finite number of eggs which we release from our ovaries, and this release brings us some cyclical change of hormones, which is normally in a healthy, let's say, balanced, normal. I mean, the average body means we are fertile. And then there is a stage where these eggs are no longer so abundant, and we start transitioning into a phase of our life where we don't need to release them anymore. In fact, they've finished. And that is just a transition, and that's called perimenopause, because menopause only means the pause of menarche, the pause of periods. That's it. We stop them. And in order to say we are going through menopause, we actually mean that we are attaining to that spot, to that place where we no longer menstruate. And that normally is measured 12 months without a period. Now, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to start the process of transition. It may take up to 15 years since a woman starts transitioning into a stage of her life where she no longer releases eggs, she doesn't have a period, and her hormones flooded her body are slightly different than when she was fertile. And that's called postmenopause. So why is this important? Because what we are normally calling menopause, we are actually speaking about discomfort. We are talking about pre-menopause associated discomfort. And that is very different than calling it menopause, because menopause, it's likely that all women go through if they live long enough. Post 55 years old, some women attain it later, some women attain it much earlier. There are several factors who affect this, and it's the factors of environment, genetics, their lifestyle, chemical treatments they had in the past, many different factors that we can discuss. Yet, it eventually, when we get to postmenopause, we have the need to other parts of our body to take care of the hormones that so far have been in place, and we adjusted, and now we are in a different physiological way of operating. The important thing for this is that transition is not necessarily uncomfortable. In fact, depends on the lifestyle. And there is research, as I teach in my lecture, there is research that shows that women living in Western industrialized societies are more prone to go through discomfort during that transition of perimenopause than women who live in not Western, not industrialized communities. Now, this is not a geographical issue, because some women live in countries where are very, very advanced industrially, and yet they don't go through the symptoms, because normally they are not so affected by what we normally call the industrialized lifestyle, and vice versa. There are women living in the countryside with what you would say, a very different lifestyle, and yet they have symptoms. And that has to do with the fact, and this is what I really wish every woman would know from an early age. It's when we go at the stage of menopause, a woman's body needs to have replaced the ovaries function by the adrenal glands. Now, the adrenal glands have always existed, have always done a job in our lives, in most cases. Remember, this is normal statistics for the general. It doesn't apply to every single individual on the planet. But in a female, the adrenal glands have this amazing job of starting to compensate some of the hormonal changes that need to now be taking over from the ovaries. And the problem is that when we get to that stage where the adrenal glands need to do this job, many of us, our adrenal glands are not in the best fitness. Many of us have gone through so much stress, chronic stress lifestyle, that by the time we are in our 40s, we are actually struggling at many different levels. And then we demand from the adrenals to have a different role. Now, why is this important? It's important because in any case, our adrenal glands, the glands which are sitting on top of the kidneys and are doing a brilliant job at trying to help us to manage stress, they were not designed to be in action very often. But that's what our society, the kind of conditions we have in a society, we are supposed to be really proactive, productive, very busy. If we're not busy, some of us feel really bad because we're not busy. If we're feeling a little bit low, many of us don't have the opportunity to cancel work, to cancel mothering, to cancel the actions that we need to take that day to support our partners, our friends. So that's why it links to societies that are industrialized, because the level of productivity demanded from women is higher than, I believe, our bodies are designed. Most of our bodies are designed for. And so our adrenal glands are kicking in all the time. So by the time they need to do an extra job that they didn't have to do before, they are very tired. And when we look at the typical symptoms of a premenopausal period where we feel discomfort, they are so varied that we have to see from a functional medicine perspective, from physiology, what is actually happening here? What is missing for this body to go back to balance? And normally, in the conventional medicine approach, we see, well, we have less estrogen, or we have not enough progesterone, we have too much estrogen. It's all about balancing the hormones that before were supposed to be there. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is that, wait a second, I cannot analyze what a woman needs now in this new stage of her life, because she actually does not need to be fertile. This stage is a stage for us to step into different functions, right? And I have published here on this group an article written on the transition period of time between sorry, I'm just concentrating on the fact that I want to say the name of the author, and it's Jane, and I know that I am in flow, so I won't remember her name. That's how my brain works. I'm not very good with labels. So I will put in the chat again the reference to this post that I clicked. It's an amazing work what she's offering these days. And particularly what I liked about her suggestion is that she's actually bringing a name to something that I've always considered existed, which is this transition between the mother, the archetype of the mother, which many of us women, with or without children, we know it happens to us. We are in a creative force during our adult life. And then there is another archetype that we tap into these days more and more with more and more knowledge, which is the crown. And what's the crown? I like the association with the word crown, because it's a time when a woman is no longer putting energy into reproduction. So she is, but because that is seen as something that we are not here just to reproduce. This is something that I carry with me. We are here to be very creative, but it's not necessarily to have children, though I do respect so much. My main focus is to respect our mothers and the lineage of mothers that we have. Yet that does not mean that our whole being is to be justified by creating children, because if that was the case, then why would we be keeping the women after they are no longer fertile? And what happens to women who feel so creative and yet they don't have children? That's a whole different debate that covers sometimes very non-traditional approaches to raising children and traditional societies, and breaking really with the concepts that so often are thrown in a way that feels like it's difficult to get onto these subjects anyway. But continuing here, Jane brought a different name for this transition time that I always believed that needed some kind of attention, which is between the time when we are still very creative and we will be creative, the forceful of putting that into production, and then the one who is no longer so worried about production and performance, the crone in the middle, she called Maga. And Maga is this woman who actually, it's this change, and she's starting to get more elements of the community, and still very much about concentrating on her capacity to create and to attend to people in a nurturing way that normally we associate with motherhood and to her projects. So why is the MAGA so important? Because I believe that so many of us start stepping into this place and we feel that, wait a second, I no longer feel so committed to my children or to my projects. I don't care. I'm actually much more, I don't care about my children, but I have a different attitude. But I'm still not totally, I still have so much. I hear from women, I still have so much to share. So I don't want to isolate myself in a hut in the forest. So what's happening here? Anyway, for me, this links to the perimenopausal period. What if our body is adjusting to be very creative from a place of, I no longer need to perform and to express myself into something beyond myself, like children, like projects. I am now honing my full balance as a woman who can be at service from within, which will go into how I interpret the later stages of the life of a woman. And what if it's during that transition that I see that I can let go of some of my concerns and some of my ways of expressing myself, and I can start inhabiting others. But in order for that to happen, I need support. So the adrenal glands, which are the glands that need to do this transition, they need support. Everything needs support. And how can we support that? Well, sometimes people think, oh, I, as a therapist, very often I've said to my women, we need to support your adrenal glands now that you are going through discomforts through your transition into menopause. And yet, the adrenal glands actually can be supported throughout the whole life. So I urge you, if you are dependently of, if you have gone through discomfort during your perimenopause into menopause, if you are about to start this transition, whatever it is, if you are far from going into that, I urge you, why do I urge you? I don't urge you, but I would recommend you to start looking into your lifestyle where you really start taking care of your adrenals and your stress levels, because above all other factors, everything else you can do for yourself, take supplements, nutrition, anything, yoga, exercise. Actually, yoga, it doesn't come into this because actually yoga has a physiological different effect in the body, but anything you think that is healthy for you, the most important factor that we should be really looking at, I believe, as a therapist, as a coach, as a consultant, is stress. What does stress mean? Stress only means a set of factors that influence my capacity to go back to balance, to go back to homeostasis. So whatever is for you, my recommendation is for you to look at what are the factors in your life that affect your ability to go back to balance. So, for example, a yoga class is for some people really important because it gives them an opportunity to relax the whole body, to tap into another way of being present, and that physiologically relaxes the body and increases their ability to go back to health and balance. However, you can also imagine that some people practice yoga from a very stressful place. So it defeats the purpose. So this is how simple that I can put to you. It's very simple. In fact, most important things in life, I believe, and I've become an expert in so many things. And when I say expert between commas, is because I love knowing all the factors. And yet very often I only need that to reach the same conclusion. I look for balance. Okay. So ecosystems, I look for balance. Relationships, I look for balance. That does not mean that I don't have peaks of excitement, energy. It's all part, like in the seasons. We have heat, we have cold, and we have everything in between. So going back to the thing of menopause, why does this matter? Because truly, what I find that is important is to shift the stigma around menopause. It is possible that we are more surrounded with women who are going through this perimenopause into the transition to postmenopause, suffering, being in discomfort with so many different the symptoms. The statistics are out there, very easy to access. It's affecting at least 60% of women at the moment in this age gap, in a age group. Now, the thing is that it can be avoided. There are enough elements in anthropological studies, in sociological studies. It's out there. There are factors that contribute to a better transition. There are factors that are damaging and they are more affecting negatively the transition. So we can do something about it. We can take responsibility. But most importantly, the more we take responsibility for going into this, if possible, because it's from a privileged perspective, I have this information and I want to share it. But actually, do I have the conditions to change my lifestyle so that I can be less stressed, so that I can support my adrenal glands and therefore support my transition? And why does that matter? Because I believe that when a woman is imbalanced, when she is comfortable with her transitions, she's even more comfortable with the stage she's now going to be on. And there's nothing more important to society in terms of holding, in terms of stability, in terms of nurturing, in terms of advocacy for social causes, in terms of bringing wisdom and knowledge and mentoring to the new generations. There's nothing more valuable to increase the level of empathy and our capacity to resolve conflict than a woman in an older females of our communities. I'm making a very strong statement because I'm saying there's nothing like, and that's not true because we are all individuals. And so when I'm being very specific in terms of gender, I do really not want to exclude. So let me own the statement here. I want to say that the value of an older woman who has gone through menopause with peace, into a very powerful transition through her MAGA years, where she is both creative and nurturing and within herself, capable and wise to own her life and her choices, maybe for the first time in her life for herself, to support a community like no other. You know, we get our communities need the participation and cooperation of everybody. Everybody brings a unique wisdom, unique experience, unique perspective. That's what is about diversity. That's why diversity, that's why inclusion. Now, I believe that it's very important to speak about openly of what each person is bringing. And that's why I create a system on feedback for organizations where really highlights the unique qualities that an individual bring to every single stage of the project, not just based on productivity. So this, as I say from the beginning, this is all linked. And we know now that, you know, young children can bring a very interesting perspective of the world when we interview them, right? It's quite inspiring to see. Teenagers have a particular perspective of the world. Business women, mothers, stay-at-home mothers, women creative who do voluntary work, men on so many different spectrums of society, men who live on their own, men who are into business. Everybody, depending on what they do, will have a different perspective. And the work I do with organizations is actually to encourage this perception so that the individuals are valued for the collective enhancement of general well-being. And this, for me, is also why today I was invited to offer this lecture. Today, I'm recording this video to stay here for archive and for access for you and for myself. But essentially, I'm today choosing to acknowledge the role of older women in particular. And I want this to be taken not as better, not as worse, but to acknowledge that there is a unique contribution of women who go through transition, whether they had a transition that was smooth, or most likely in our societies, a transition that was not smooth at all. That experience counts. And that experience may serve as an inspiration for us to support other women who go through those transitions with discomfort, women who haven't started that transition into menopause, post-menopause, and maybe they can do something about it to prevent the discomfort. We may actually use this to inspire also other individuals in our society who don't go specifically through that transition of menopause, but who can benefit from the attention we give to a certain group. And this is why minorities and larger minorities, smaller minorities really count to inspire each other. Today at the talk, I had a man. I had actually around 60 people, some mostly online and others in the spot. You know, these days it's how it works, these lectures. And it was really great to have those in the room because they had an opportunity to interact with each other and share their thoughts about the subject, which is something that I normally try to put in the magic of my lectures. Anyway, there was one man present who is a manager, and he was interested because as a manager, he knows there is staff going through discomfort through menopause. He also is married. He said he could support better his wife to understand a little bit more. But another aspect that brought into is that himself, he has gone through health challenges. And when he connects with women who are able to share about their discomfort, he feels alignment because he knows what is to suffer from a condition and how that impacts his work and how much he struggled to be recognized for his health challenges. And so that he could continue to provide his best to the company, considering his health challenges, not despite of, but considering, because at all stages, someone who goes through these challenges has also a perspective to bring. So menopause is an opportunity for us to reflect on something we can do about it. What is actually about menopause that matters in the world? And then how can this serve to inspire women throughout all our lives? And what will look like if we shift the perception that it's something that is an unavoidable fate for our destiny as women? If we could start looking at menopause as actually something that we look forward, because menopause does not necessarily have to have a negative impact in our lives. We just need to know how we can support it. And if you follow more on this subject, it's a long-term investment in your health. And by the time we arrive to that phase, hopefully, the body has been supported so that we can concentrate on the meaning of this transition. And when we look forward because we are owning the benefits, the curiosity, the opportunities that becoming someone different and let's say a continuation of who we have been is something we can look forward. I mean, it's pretty challenge. And I'm thinking of all the women that I speak at the start of my program and at the start of the journey they do by working when they work with me. I know that for many, many of us out there, this is a very difficult concept to imagine, because even in the language that we connect with online, on all the promotions and, oh, you're going through this, so, you know, you better get ready, or all the magazines and all of that. The important thing is very difficult to imagine that I'm talking about something that could be really, really an amazing opportunity. And in fact, it is aligned with every other single stage of transition that humans go through, not just physiological, but transitions like getting into education, starting to learn a new skill, going into the workforce, or actually starting our first relationships, when we start having intimacy and sex, when we become mothers, parents, when we go through big, important stages of our lives. Normally, these events can be associated with growth. I mean, childhood diseases, illnesses are a typical example of that. But we don't see that often these days because children don't have them so often. But it used to be teeth, you know, the teeth that show up. Suddenly the child is becoming more capable of doing also some intellectual tasks that before they weren't. It's all connected. Anyway, my hope for us women is that we really connect with the challenges that we face for the fact that we were born with a vagina, which means we were born with potential capacity to have children. Sometimes it's not the case, but it's what is expected from us, maybe in society, and maybe what we expect from ourselves. So it does carry something. And what I wish is that we see these potential challenges and what may have been factors that limit the way we see ourselves, to see them as opportunities. And I'm very conscious that in order for me to see a challenge as an opportunity, I need to understand that I have to be safe and supported. So I just wish that we start seeing these stages of transition as opportunities for growth, and still own the need and the acknowledgement that we need to be supported, we need to be safe, so we can take action. And I hope that this has made sense. This was very much improvised, in flow from what I brought in my mornings. I wish everybody the world's Menopause Day. It's incredible. And the 18th of October has been celebrated officially since last year. So we are here very, very fresh. Why this matters to me and why I believe this matters to everybody. I also want you to know that as you may see me here supporting women advocates for our sovereignty and leadership and opportunities to really be authentic and experience our fullest potential, if that is ever possible. And I'm very happy to bring what I've been gathering for the last 20 years on these matters. So very open for you to ask me questions and for you to consider that there is a different way of experience your womanhood, despite or particularly because of the limiting beliefs that so often we carry because of the system and the general social context that we were born into. I am organizing sessions in November where I will be opening a communal call to discuss female and health issues here on the Woman of Me group. And I want you to know that you're very welcome to come. It's not going to be a promotional space. It's going to be a working space. So if you want to come, you want to connect with my women's health and leadership work, you need to sign up so that I can also have a relationship with you, knowing what you need. And so that those sessions can be very tailor-made to help you through that. So connect with me, see the posts. Maybe the algorithm will allow you to be seeing the posts where I will be putting information about this. If anytime you find that you could share something with me, you have a question, just reach out. For those of you who know me and work with me directly, you know that that's why I live, what I live for, that and many beautiful things, other beautiful things I have in my life. So it's been a pleasure to be here. I haven't been very vocal. I'm very busy with my Authentic Woman System program launch, and I have my clients doing that, and it's amazing. It really, I go passionate about it. We have all the work that is accessible to them online, and the sessions are really, really beautiful. I'm seeing so much magic. I'm also almost closing my portfolio with male leadership. So I've done that with men as well, because I know there is a special place for them in my work, and that's been amazing. And yeah, stay connected. I am here. I hope you're there. Hold on to your strength and acknowledging your vulnerabilities and your needs for support. And maybe you can reach out to me or other people in this community. Finally, I hope that you are getting support to go through this stage where we are all as a global community of men and women and all people who are seeing with pain and feeling with pain, with empathy and sympathy for all the suffering that is around us. And hopefully, the more we can take responsibility to be supported, the more we will be available to support others and to start finally shifting the world perception into more compassion, health, and connection. Waheguru, I hope this idealized world comes soon. All the best. Stay connected.